The monkey's paw. The monkey's paw is a dried, mummified monkey's paw from India in W. W. Jacobs' 1902 short story, published in The Lady of the House magazine. According to the tale, an old fakir placed a spell upon it to show that fate ruled people's lives and interfering with destiny brings sorrow. The cursed object grants 3 wishes to 3 owners, but each wish comes true in horrific, unintended ways. Sergeant Major Morris brings the paw from India as the second owner and warns the White family against using it, but Mr. White wishes anyway. The family wishes for £200, and their son Herbert dies the next day in a machinery accident, with his employer providing exactly £200 in compensation. Desperate with grief, Mrs. White forces her husband to wish Herbert back to life, and something begins knocking violently at their door. Terrified of what corrupted form has returned, Mr. White uses the third and final wish to send it away, and the knocking stops. The paw twists in the holder's hand when a wish is made, and the story became one of literature's most famous cautionary tales about tampering with fate. The Portrait of Dorian Gray. The Portrait of Dorian Gray is a full-length painted portrait that serves as the cursed centerpiece of Oscar Wilde's 1890 novel, first published in Lippincott's Monthly Magazine in July 1890, before appearing in book form in 1891. The portrait, painted by artist Basil Hallward, depicts the beautiful 20-year-old Dorian Gray at the height of his youth and innocence. After seeing the completed work, Dorian makes a desperate wish that he would remain forever young, while the portrait ages instead. And this wish is somehow granted. As Dorian lives a life of hedonism, cruelty, and moral corruption over the following decades, his face remains unchanged. But the portrait transforms into a hideous reflection of his soul. Every sin manifests on the canvas. Cruelty appears in lines around the mouth. Murder shows as blood on the hands. And the once beautiful face becomes twisted and loathsome. Dorian hides the increasingly horrific portrait in a locked attic room, covering it with a purple satin coverlet. The painting becomes his conscience made visible, showing the decay he refuses to acknowledge. When Dorian finally attempts to destroy the portrait by stabbing it with a knife, the curse reverses. Servants discover Dorian's body, withered and aged, while the portrait has returned to its original beauty. King Midas's Golden Touch. King Midas's Golden Touch is a curse from Greek mythology, recounted in Ovid's Metamorphoses from 8 CE and retold by Nathaniel Hawthorne in 1851. According to the myth, Midas, king of Phrygia, was granted one wish by the god Dionysus as reward for hospitality. Blinded by greed, Midas wished that everything he touched would turn to gold, and Dionysus granted the request. Initially delighted, Midas began transforming palace objects into solid gold, but soon discovered horrifying consequences. When he tried to eat, food turned to gold in his mouth, and when he tried to drink, water became gold the instant it touched his lips. In some versions, his daughter rushed to comfort him and was instantly transformed into a golden statue at his touch. Facing starvation and devastated by his greed, Midas begged Dionysus to reverse the curse. The god instructed him to wash in the river Pactolus, and when Midas bathed there, the golden touch was cleansed from his body. The river's sands reportedly became gold-bearing afterward, explaining the real gold deposits found in the Pactolus River in ancient Lydia. The Pearl of the World. The Pearl of the World is an enormous, perfectly spherical pearl in John Steinbeck's 1947 novella The Pearl, based on a Mexican folktale Steinbeck heard in La Paz in 1940. The pearl is discovered by Kino, a poor pearl diver, while searching for an oyster to pay a doctor for treating his infant son Coyotito's scorpion sting. Described as large as a seagull's egg and perfect as the moon, the pearl initially represents hope. Kino dreams of marriage in a church, a rifle, and education for his son. However, the magnificent pearl brings only destruction. Pearl buyers in town conspire to cheat Kino, refusing to pay its true value. That night, attackers try to steal it, forcing Kino to kill in self-defense. His house is burned down, and his canoe, the family's only valuable possession, is destroyed. When Kino and his wife, Juana, flee into the mountains with Coyotito, trackers pursue them. In the final tragedy, the trackers shoot Coyotito, mistaking the baby's cry for a coyote pup. Kino kills the trackers, but returns to the village a broken man. By the novella's end, the pearl's beauty appears gray and ulcerous to Kino's eyes, and he throws it back into the ocean, rejecting the corrupting power of wealth. Dr. Jekyll's Elixir. Dr. Jekyll's Elixir is the chemical potion that drives Robert Louis Stevenson's 1886 novella, Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, published by Longmans, Green and Company in January 1886. The elixir is created by Dr. Henry Jekyll, a respectable London physician, in his attempt to separate the dual nature of man, good from evil. The potion is described as a blood-red liquor that brightens when shaken, containing phosphorus and other chemicals, including a specific impure salt that proves crucial to its function. When Jekyll drinks the mixture, he experiences violent physical transformation described as grinding in the bones and deadly nausea, emerging as Edward Hyde, a younger, shorter, purely evil alter ego. Initially, Jekyll can reverse the transformation with a second dose, but he becomes addicted to the freedom Hyde provides. Hyde commits increasingly terrible crimes, including trampling a child and murdering Sir Danvers Carew with a walking cane. As the story progresses, the transformations begin occurring involuntarily, even while Jekyll sleeps, and he finds himself trapped in Hyde's form for longer periods. When Jekyll's supply of the original impure salt runs out, and he cannot replicate the formula, he becomes permanently trapped as Hyde and ultimately commits suicide, leaving only his confession to explain the horror unleashed by his scientific hubris. The Poisoned Apple. The Poisoned Apple is the deadly fruit in Snow White, published by the Brothers Grimm in their Kinder und Hausmärchen collection, first appearing in 1812 and significantly revised in the 1857 edition. The apple is the evil queen's third and successful attempt to murder her stepdaughter after a poisoned comb and tight-laced bodice fail. Using dark magic, the queen dips the apple in poison, making one half red and poisoned, while leaving the other half white and safe. Disguised as an old peddler woman, she offers the apple to Snow White, eating the white side herself to prove its safety. When Snow White bites the poisoned red half, she falls into a death-like sleep. The 7 dwarfs place her in a glass coffin, where she lies unchanged for years. In the original Grimm version, a prince falls in love with what he believes is a corpse and takes the coffin. When his servants jostle it during transport, the apple piece dislodges from Snow White's throat, and she awakens. The popular notion of true love's kiss awakening Snow White is a later addition, notably from Disney's 1937 film, not from the Grimm brothers' original tale. At Snow White's wedding, the queen is forced to dance in red-hot iron shoes until she dies. Pandora's Box. Pandora's Box is actually a mistranslation. The original Greek myth from Hesiod's Works and Days, written around 700 BCE, describes a large storage jar called a pithos, not a small box. The mistranslation occurred in the 16th century when Erasmus rendered the Greek word as box in his 1508 Latin translation. According to Hesiod, Pandora was the first woman, created by the god Hephaestus from clay and given gifts by all the Olympian gods. Her name literally means all gifted. Zeus gave her the sealed jar as punishment to mankind for Prometheus stealing fire from the gods. Pandora married Epimetheus, Prometheus's brother, despite warnings, and brought the jar into his household. Overcome by curiosity, Pandora opened the jar, releasing all the evils, diseases, hardships, and suffering into the previously paradise-like world, including sickness, death, toil, and countless other miseries. She managed to close the lid before one final spirit escaped. Elpis, usually translated as hope, though some scholars argue it means expectation, The fact that hope remained trapped inside, while all evils escaped, has sparked endless philosophical debate about whether this was merciful or cruel. The myth explains the origin of human suffering in Greek cosmology and parallels the story of Eve in Judeo-Christian tradition, with Pandora often blamed for bringing misery to mankind. The Moonstone Diamond. The Moonstone Diamond is the cursed yellow jewel at the center of Wilkie Collins' 1868 novel, The Moonstone, considered by T.S. Eliot as the first and greatest English detective novel. The diamond was originally set in the forehead of a sacred statue of a Hindu moon god at a temple in India, where it was protected by generations of Brahmin priests. During the 1799 Siege of Seringapatam, a real historical battle, British soldier John Herncastle murdered the diamond's guardians and stole it, bringing colonial plunder and its curse back to England. The stone is described as large as a plover's egg, yellow in color, and flawless, with an inner glow. 3 Brahmin priests, disguised as traveling jugglers and performers, follow the diamond across continents and decades, waiting to reclaim it. Herncastle becomes a pariah and dies alone, then bequeaths the cursed diamond to his niece Rachel Verinder on her 18th birthday as a poisoned legacy. On her birthday night, the diamond vanishes, investigated by Sergeant Cuff, an early example of the detective character in English fiction. The investigation destroys relationships and lives. Maid Rosanna Spearman commits suicide, and Godfrey Ablewhite is murdered by the priests after stealing it. The novel explores British guilt over colonial exploitation, and the diamond is eventually returned to the sacred statue in India, where it rightfully belongs. The Necklace of Harmonia. The Necklace of Harmonia is a cursed wedding gift from Greek mythology that brought destruction to generations of Theban royalty, recorded in sources including Apollodorus's Bibliotheca and Statius's Thebaid. The necklace was crafted by Hephaestus, god of the forge, as revenge against Harmonia, daughter of Aphrodite and Ares, whose parents' adultery angered the gods. When Harmonia married Cadmus, founder of Thebes, Hephaestus gave her this golden necklace set with precious gems that granted the wearer eternal youth and beauty, but cursed them with madness, misfortune, and death. The curse passed through multiple owners in the Theban royal line. Euryphile was bribed with the necklace to convince her husband Amphiaraus to join the Seven against Thebes, where he died, and her son Alcmaeon killed her in revenge for causing his father's death. Alcmaeon inherited the necklace and was driven mad by both the curse and matricide. Other owners, according to various sources, included Semele, who demanded to see Zeus's true form and was burned to death, and Jocasta, who unknowingly married her own son Oedipus before committing suicide. Eventually, the necklace was dedicated to Apollo at Delphi to end the curse, but a thief named Phalus stole it from the temple, went mad, and died when his house burned down. Faust's contract. Faust's contract is the blood-signed pact between scholar and demon in Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's Faust, with Part 1 published in 1808 and Part 2 posthumously in 1832, based on the historical Johann Georg Faust, who lived around 1480 to 1540. The story follows Dr. Faust, a disillusioned scholar who has mastered theology and magic, but found no satisfaction in knowledge. After summoning spirits, the demon Mephistopheles appears and offers a wager. Mephistopheles will serve Faust on earth, providing unlimited knowledge and worldly pleasures. But if Faust ever experiences a moment so perfect that he wishes it to last forever, specifically, if he says, "Verwele doch, du bist so schön," meaning, "Stay a while, you are so beautiful," then his soul belongs to Mephistopheles in hell. Faust signs the contract in blood drawn from his own arm. His pursuit of pleasure destroys Gretchen, a young woman he seduces who bears his child, commits infanticide in desperation, and is executed. In Part 2, Faust continues seeking ultimate satisfaction through power and ambition. At the end, while performing good works reclaiming land from the sea, Faust finally speaks the fatal words, and Mephistopheles claims victory. However, angels intervene and save Faust's soul, arguing that anyone who constantly strives deserves redemption, representing Goethe's romantic philosophy about humanity's eternal struggle for meaning. The Shirt of Nessus. The Shirt of Nessus is the poisoned tunic that killed the greatest hero of Greek mythology. Appearing in Sophocles' tragedy, Women of Trachis, from around 450 to 425 BCE, and Ovid's Metamorphoses. The curse began when the centaur Nessus attempted to rape Hercules' wife Deianira while ferrying her across a river. Hercules shot Nessus with an arrow poisoned with the Hydra's blood from his famous second labor. As Nessus died, he told Deianira to collect his blood, claiming it was a love potion that would keep Hercules faithful forever. But this was the centaur's revenge. Years later, when Hercules captured the princess Iole, Deianira feared losing her husband and sent him a shirt soaked in Nessus's blood as a gift, genuinely believing it would restore his love. When Hercules wore the shirt during a sacrifice to the gods, his body heat activated the Hydra venom. The poison burned like acid, eating through his flesh, and the shirt could not be removed. Tearing it off only tore away his own skin. In unbearable agony, Hercules built a funeral pyre on Mount Oeta and died in the flames. Upon realizing her terrible mistake, Deianira committed suicide. Hercules' mortal body was consumed, but he ascended to Mount Olympus as a full immortal god, completing his apotheosis. The One Ring. The One Ring is the ultimate cursed object in modern literature, forged by the Dark Lord Sauron in J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth legendarium with The Lord of the Rings, published from 1954 to 1955. Sauron created the ring around the year 1600 of the Second Age in the fires of Mount Doom to control all other rings of power, 3 for the elves, 7 for the dwarves, and 9 for men. The plain gold band bears an inscription in the Black Speech that appears only when heated. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. Sauron poured much of his own power into the ring, making it sentient and malevolent. It grants invisibility to mortal wearers by shifting them into the Wraith world, and unnaturally extends life. Gollum possessed it for 478 years, and Bilbo Baggins aged slowly during his 60 years with it. The ring corrupts all who possess it, creating obsession and addiction while whispering to bearers, seeking to return to Sauron. Even the wise Gandalf and the elf queen Galadriel refused to touch it, knowing it would corrupt them. The ring can only be destroyed in the fires where it was forged. After an epic quest, Frodo Baggins carries it to Mount Doom, but at the final moment claims it for himself. Only Gollum's intervention, biting it from Frodo's finger and falling into the lava on March 25th, 3rd Age, 3019, destroys the ring and defeats Sauron forever. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now